All right, so now that we've got that all set up, I've got my two layers configured, a background and a ball layer, and I need an object. And obviously the object that I'm going to be going for is the ball. So the first thing that I want to do here is select the oval tool, which I've already clicked on. It's over here. It looks like a oval. And then what I'm going to do is I want to go ahead and draw it out there. But you'll notice right now it's got a pencil with the little can't do it sign. The reason why is my active layer, the layer that's selected, it's highlighted in orange here, is the background layer. And if you remember, we locked it. If I go and click on this, what's going to happen is it's going to ask me, hey, this background layer is locked. Do you want to unlock it and show this layer? Well, no, we locked it for a reason. So we want to leave it locked. But what we need to do is target the ball layer. So anytime you get that message, make sure you're reading what messages come up on the screen. Don't just blindly click. Okay, I know as students sometimes it just seems like it's all okay. But first, so I've targeted that, but I also don't have a frame selected. Okay, that one's kind of orangish, but it's not actually selected. So when I click on that layer, okay, now um, you'll see that red marker is lined up with frame one. And I can draw in my first circle. All right, so drawing that in, let me undo that. I want to show Control Z to undo. There we go. All right, target that one again. Okay, so I want to go over this part too. So just like when we were resizing it, you want to hold the shift key because we're making a ball. Okay, if a ball is not round, it's not going to bounce correctly. Okay, so be careful with this. And the main way that you can do this is just like you did the other thing. You hold shift and it's going to constrain the properties. Okay, now I want the ball to be not too big. Okay, I'm going to go for one about that size. All right, so my ball is created, but it looks too flat. Okay, I want my ball to have some depth to it, but there's also a couple other things that I'll focus on. Now, a handy shortcut here is Control Plus. So I press Control Plus, and I'm going to do it twice actually, and then I'm going to use the space bar. If I hold the space bar, it turns into the hand tool, and I can take and drag this up so I can get a closer look at that circle. Now the thing with this circle is it has an outline and it has an interior part. So it's green with a black outline. But if I wanted to move this and I chose the selection tool and I clicked on this and started moving it, the problem is I've just moved the interior. I didn't move the exterior. Okay, so the two are technically separate objects. Okay, and I don't really need an outline around it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and remove it. But the way I'm going to do that is if I take and drag over the whole thing, I select both. Okay, so you can see that little dot pattern is happening in the outline as well. Now, what I can do here is down on this lower side, you've got a little pencil tool. This controls the stroke color. That outline is called the stroke. Okay, so I change that. I'll go ahead and click that, and I go up here to this box that has the red slash through it. That's telling me none. So I went no stroke, and then I'm going to set the interior fill. I'm actually going to choose one of these gradients. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to choose the red one. And now if I click off of this, there we go, you'll see it has a little bit more depth to it because of that gradient. Now if I want to change the way that gradient's applied, I can choose the paint bucket tool and it's going to be working with whatever this fill color is. So you'll notice it has a paint bucket icon. Okay, it goes right along with it. So if I target, let's say right there, I can get more of like my highlights are hitting above and my shadows on the ball are hitting below. Okay, so I like that. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom out again. And let's go back to the hand tool and drag that up. So now I've got a ball that's got a little bit more dimension to it. All right, my ball has one more thing I need to do though. Because one thing that's handy in Animate is the use of the library. Okay, you see I've got it highlighted over here, and right now it's got bitmap 1 listed here. That is the timing sequence that we selected. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to modify, and I'm going to, sorry, I have to select the object first, drag over it. Okay, so now it's selected, and I'm going to go up here to modify, and I want to convert it to a symbol. The shortcut for this is F8, or when I say F8 or F7 or F5, I'm talking about the function keys along the top of your keyboard. In this case, we're going to choose convert to symbol, and I'm going to name this symbol red ball, and I want to leave it as a graphic symbol, and I'm going to say OK. All right, and now I have an icon in my library here called the red ball. So what that means is if I ever delete that, all I have to do is grab the red ball from my library and drag it over, and poof, I've got a red ball. All right, but let's go on. So that is on one frame. So if I cycle through here, that red ball only exists for one frame of the animation. Okay, so what we're going to do, we have it as a symbol, and we have our marks through here. Well, we're going to set it up we're going to focus on the timing right now. Okay, so right now I'm going to set it at the bottom. I'm setting it at the bottom because that's going to be our base level. We want always, the ground never moves. So if we set it at the bottom, then anytime the ball bounces, it's going to be hitting the bottom. And we want to make sure that bottom point is always the same. Okay, so I know that I want a keyframe, a major movement point. That's what we call a keyframe at frame 1, which I've got. I also want one at frame 7 when it hits the ground here. Okay, so I'm going to take my mouse over here and I'm going to select frame 7. And now here's what we're going to do. Along that top row of keys, the function keys, we're going to press F6. What that's going to do is create a duplicate frame. So you can see now I've got an end frame, a closing frame here. That little square box is indicating a close frame. So that means this one goes from there to there. And then I've got a new frame that looks pretty much the same, but we'll get into more details on that later. At the top, it's at frame 12, so I'm going to go up here to frame 12 and F6 again. Down at frame 17, I'm going to choose F6. At frame 21, F6. At frame 25. Okay, you'll note the 25s, or every 5 frames, the gray looks a little bit different, so that's an easy way to spot it. Okay, so another one there, another one at 28, and another one at 31. All right, so each time it plays through, so if I press enter here to test, okay, you can see it doesn't do anything. It's just, I got way too much lag going on. Okay, so it doesn't do anything. It just plays through. All right, so that's done. Next, frame 1 is actually going to take place up here. Okay, so I'm going to line it up roughly with where the number 1 key is. This is just a guide. It's a rough estimate. Okay, so now if I play that through, it's going to suddenly drop to there. And that's where we want frame 7. Frame 12 we want up here. So these I'm just moving straight up. And because of the default settings, because of the default settings in Animate, it's going to try to stay locked on a certain path. So it's easy to move it just straight up. Okay, so the next one at frame 17 we want on the ground, so I'm going to leave that one. Frame 21, I want to raise that one up. Okay, I'm going to make it roughly alongside that one at the 21 symbol. Okay, so next one at frame 25, that one's on the ground. Frame 28, I'm going to drag that one up just a bit to here. And in frame 31 can stay there. So now if we test the movie, Control Enter to test the movie, it's just going to suddenly appear top to bottom, top to bottom, top to bottom. So you're not really going to see much going on as far as the animation. Okay, but that's when our other sequences need to come into play. All right, so what I'm going to go ahead and do is finish this out by selecting frame 1. So I go back to frame 1 and I'm going to press F6. Okay, so that's going to create another duplicate frame of it, of frame 1. And I can take and move it down a little bit so that it's now lined up with the 2. All right, once I've got that done, I'm going to F6 one more time, and I'm going to move it down to where the 3 is. Now, the reason why this spacing gets more and more, that has to do with gravity. Okay, as things start to fall, they pick up speed. Okay, so that's what that is indicating. Basically, it's covering more distance in less time. Okay, so each time I'm pressing F6 and then just moving it down, getting it lined up with the next part. Okay, so down to frame 6. Okay, so then it's moving as fast as it can right through there. So that's why it covers so much space between frame 5 and frame 6. And frame 7 is where it hits the ground. Okay, so I press F8 and move it up to frame 8. So it's hit the ground, it's got a lot of speed, so it's going to bounce really fast. Okay, but as it bounces and as it starts to move up, it's losing momentum. So gravity is trying to pull it back down. So it's not bouncing up nearly as high or as nearly as fast nor as high. Okay, and frame 11 is right there. And we've already got frame 12 in. Frame 12 is up at its peak. Okay, and then for frame 13, I'm going to bring it down. I'm going to bring down frame 14. And for frame 15. So now it's starting to speed up again. Okay, with the biggest gap being right before it bounces. Okay, and then this one, it goes to, oops. Oh no, that was right. All right, so frame 17 is in place. So from frame 17, I can do F6 again. So I'm bringing it up to frame 18, up again on frame 19. So it's losing its momentum. It's no longer bouncing as high. It's slowing down. Okay, and then on its way back down. All right, so you can complete that, but if I test this movie, you can start to see how it's working. But it's just continuing to go through the process. And for this first one, all I want you to do is focus on bouncing it straight up and down. And go ahead and finish out the rest of it as well.